Welcome to SNAP, Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities. This educational recovery podcast is presented by Claremont Mental Health and Mandy Friedman, licensed professional clinical counselor. This presentation contains vital information for survivors of abuse. Topics include the spectrum of abusive personalities, targets of abuse, abusive relationships, and survivors in recovery. We hope this information helps you gain solid footing and clarity as you navigate your road to recovery.
Hello, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, the creator of SNAP, Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities, and the owner of Claremont Mental Health. I'm going to talk about love bombing. We're going to go over what is love bombing, when and why is love bombing used, the chemistry of love bombing, and how can you tell when it's love bombing. Abusers use love bombing as part of the abusive cycle. So that means they're going to use it after a big blow up, like as part of your honeymoon phase, or they're going to use it before or after a phase of devaluation. They're also going to use it when you're trying to leave, and they're going to use it, this is kind of maybe the most important time, they're going to use it at the very beginning of a relationship. Now, why do abusers use love bombing? They use it to get you to shut up and to leave them alone and get off their back about something. They're going to use it to reel you back in. Like I said, when they've gone too far or when it seems like you're going to leave, they're going to love bomb and that will reel you back in. They also use it to remind you of the good times because, as we know, there are good times too. It's not all bad, and that's one of the reasons why abusive relationships are so hard to get away from. And finally, they're going to use it to win you over. So that could be, like I mentioned at the beginning of the relationship, they're trying to woo you, trying to win you. It could also be trying to win you in a different setting. It doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate partner relationship here. It could be almost like a workplace version of love bombing where someone interviews really well, but then after you hire them and they're working there, they're not really the person you thought that they were. So love bombing is something that people do to manipulate others into thinking that they're someone that they're not and to be very confused about that. So in the relationship, it works well because it's like, oh wait, they're really not this bad person all the time. Remember, they're a good person sometimes and they act like they love you sometimes. So it gets confusing. It works well. Next, the chemistry of love bombing. Now when I say chemistry, I mean your feel-good chemicals, your stress hormones. You know, we know that our nervous system gets hijacked, that our emotions get hijacked, our self-confidence, our perceptions, everything gets hijacked by this person. Well, the chemistry of making you feel good is very powerful. So first, let's say this is when it's at the beginning of the relationship, right? They're really laying it on thick. They're really misrepresenting what life with them is going to be like, but it seems amazing. They make it seem like that they know exactly how to make you feel good and be thoughtful. So that releases a lot of feel-good chemicals at the beginning of the relationship. I mean, you're on a high. And remember, you're constantly chasing that high of getting back to the beginning. So they're really laying it on thick at first because that gives you that major burst of those feel-good chemicals. Now, as part of the cycle, you're starved for those things, right? You're really neglected for kindness, thoughtfulness, just the general basic human decency, right? So since you're starving for those things, when they do give it to you, it feels so good. It's very much, again, that high that you crave as part of the relationship, part of the abusive cycle. So love bombing has a chemistry to it. Now, how can you tell that something is love bombing? I would look at the general dynamic of the relationship and your day-to-day life, your daily quality of life, just your normal humdrum, nothing special life. That's where we can tell if it's love bombing or not, because you should be receiving kindness, thoughtfulness, someone doing kind things for you. And I don't mean it has to be a big love bombing dramatic show, right? In fact, That's part of how we can tell, is if it's a big dramatic show. And if there's an audience too, that's often an indicator that it's love bombing. So if it doesn't match what your regular life is like, it's likely to be love bombing. Another way you can tell that it's love bombing is that they expect it to work and they expect you to act right. And if you don't, they get mad. So if you've ever interrupted the love bombing with an actual question or criticism, or you didn't have the big reaction that they thought you would have, you'll notice that they get kind of pissed off that you haven't acknowledged them and stroked them over how they gave you this love bombing moment. Finally, the biggest way, the main way that you can tell that this is love bombing is that you never get to actually work on your issues. You never actually get to have the meaningful conversations where you have shared understanding and clarity, and we take responsibility, we get on the same page, and we work on stuff. That never happens. This person expects that the love bombing takes the place of this. So if you're still left feeling like things are unresolved, and yet they're doing something nice for you out of nowhere, and it's a big grandiose show about it, flowers, music, poetry, ridiculousness, taking you out somewhere fancy, however they do it. If you still don't get to have those talks that you need to have, but this is happening, it's a good chance that it's love bombing. I hope this has been helpful. Bye.
If you like this podcast, subscribe and leave us a review. Find Mandy Friedman, LPCC CCDVC on YouTube and Facebook. Join the SNAP Survivors of Narcissistic and Abusive Personalities Facebook group and follow us on Instagram @theofficialsnap. Thanks for listening.